In a time where anti-Semitism is on the rise yet again, and the Jewish people are once again facing persecution in society, it is worth being reminded of the sacrifice of Saint Maximilian Kolbe, the patron saint of Auschwitz.
He was born in the 1890s, and he was born to a family that was small but devout. His parents got caught up in the political things of the war. In the First World War, a lot of his family became divided. And he got so worried about what's going to become to him that he brought it in prayer, and then had a vision of the Blessed Mother. And that vision of the Blessed Mother offered him the two crowns, the crown of martyrdom, the crown of purity, and said, I offer you these two crowns, which one will you take? And Maximilian Kolbe said, I choose both. And so that kind of led him on a path of radical yeses that carried him through his life.
Saint Maximilian Kolbe was eventually ordained a priest in the Franciscan order.
Well, the Franciscans are based on the simplicity of the life that St. Francis established.
Okay.
So there is a radical poverty to it, but there's also the idea that first we help where we can, and then we kind of go from there. At one point he did go to Lourdes as well, and so his letters from Lourdes are part of how he was wrestling with this whole idea of what does the Immaculate Conception mean, and how do I convey this to other people, and that part of the struggle.
It was at Lourdes where Saint Maximilian Kolbe saw the Freemasons parading throughout the town with an image of the devil and blaspheming the Virgin Mary. And it was at that point where he founded the militia of the Immaculata.
The militia was basically he founded it with a group of other seminarians who basically wanted to spread the message of Marian consecration and also the miraculous medal. And through those things, but basically, Marian faith was being very attacked, and they wanted to be something that was a counter to that. They saw the Masons as an organized group of people who were systematically trying to destroy their faith. They wanted to be a systematic counterpoint to build the faith. But the other thing is that because I think if Mary was going to be so under attack, that the counter had to be Marian. He wanted to change the world so that everybody could love Jesus as much as Mary loved her son Jesus. And that also kind of awakened in him a missionary spirit. So that missionary spirit would eventually take him to found places in Poland.
During his first stint in Poland, that's when St. Maximilian Kolbe founded the first monthly Catholic magazine, Night of the Immaculata, in the city of Krakow.
It was significant because, first of all, he was the first person really to embrace the idea of a Catholic newsletter that would go worldwide. That would be accessible to people, that people could subscribe to and learn about, things that were going on as far as how everything that was happening in the world could also be tied to faith, and how all that could be together. Because it wasn't just a book on theology, it was a book on taking philosophical concepts and applying them to daily life. And then it was Japan. A good chunk of his life was spent doing missionary work in Japan. He just really wanted to reach out to a part of the world that did not have any Catholic outreach at the time. Eventually, it got to the point that they were able to actually establish the one in Nagasaki as their full-blown monastery. When Nagasaki was bombed, 4 years after the martyrdom of Saint Maximilian Kolbe, the monastery was the only thing that did not get knocked down. And then it was back to Poland. They needed him back to do formation for more Franciscans, but they also needed him to expand the work of what he was publishing. For St. Max, the idea was centralize our efforts in Poland so that we can get the messages out and keep the gospel going and keep doing what it is that we can do. Most people don't know that St. Max was arrested twice, but the first time was because they were actually hiding Jews in the monastery. The second time was for his article on truth, which was published in Reiser's, which denounced the Nazis. Mm-hmm. Basically publishing articles that basically attacked the beliefs of what socialism was presenting as ideals. He couldn't be very, very explicitly specific, but what his focus was on was the idea of truth. Well, I basically said truth is not in National Socialism, it's in the gospel. I mean, truth is not something that can be subjective, and truth is not something that can be found in the message of what National Socialism represents. He wanted to be very clear in what he was writing that he was opposed to National Socialism. Of course, eventually that would lead to his, the martyrdom that he would give, and of course giving his life for a Jewish prisoner. He went to Auschwitz. His cell is marked as a place for people to be reverencing in Auschwitz itself. A prisoner had escaped, and there were 10 who were lined up. And then when the one man said, "I have children, please spare me," and Maximilian Kolbe said, "I'll take his place," and the guard said, "Who are you?" And he said, "I am a Catholic priest." And so they let him take his place, and then they put them in solitary confinement while they were for them basically to die. And while they were in the solitary confinement, they said that they heard him singing and praying, that the guards were even requesting prayers from him, and he was praying for them. And even though he only had the one lung, he was the last survivor of the 10 that were put in the solitary thing. And then they had to kill him by lethal injection. He did everything he could to be joyful in the midst of the things that are hard. In the midst of the worst thing you could possibly imagine in human history, God could still move in such an incredibly powerful way that people are still talking about it 80, 90 years later. Saint